Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Some women are easy to understand, others are impossible to predict. And then there's a third type, the ones who quietly rewrite the rules while everyone else is still memorizing them. Here's a fact most people don't like to admit. Social science has shown that people who don't rely on group approval make decisions that are more consistent, more strategic, and far harder to manipulate. Translation? When someone isn't emotionally rented by the crowd, they move differently, and you can feel it, even if you can't explain it. Now this is where things get interesting, because the Sigma female doesn't look dramatic, loud, or attention-hungry. She doesn't need a theme song, a spotlight, or a motivational speech in the mirror. She just quietly refuses to play the same social games, and that alone already puts her in a different category. While others are busy perfecting appearances, she's perfecting exits, leverage, and long-term advantage, which is way less cute on Instagram, but way more effective in real life. And let's be honest for a second. If these habits were easy to copy, everybody would already be doing them. But most people don't struggle with knowing what to do. They struggle with having the emotional discipline to actually do it. That's why some women blend into the background of the crowd, while others operate like they've got a private instruction manual nobody else received, and they're not lending it out. So today, we're breaking down the Sigma female habits ordinary women can't copy, not because they're secret, but because they require a level of self-control, emotional independence, and strategic thinking that most people are simply not trained for. No fairy tales, no hype, and definitely no fake confidence quotes. Just the real patterns that separate women who follow trends from women who quietly set their own direction, and somehow always seem 3 steps ahead. Number 1. She is comfortable being misunderstood for long periods of time. A Sigma female doesn't feel the need to constantly explain herself, and that alone terrifies people who thrive on control or validation. Most women panic when someone misreads their intentions or assumptions spread about them because society has taught them that being liked equals survival. Not her. She understands something very few do. Being understood is optional. Being authentic is mandatory. She can carry herself through situations where friends, co-workers, or even lovers completely misinterpret her actions, words, or choices, and she doesn't crumble under the pressure. In fact, she often uses it to her advantage. Being misunderstood gives her space to operate. People project their expectations onto her, and she lets it happen because she knows their version of her has nothing to do with who she really is. She doesn't need constant reassurance or validation, and she certainly doesn't waste energy correcting every false narrative. Instead, she focuses on what matters, her goals, her growth, her strategy. While everyone else is busy shaping their image for others, she's quietly building influence, knowledge, and control that can't be faked. It's not arrogance or coldness, it's a conscious choice. She has learned that most misunderstandings are temporary and trivial compared to the long-term benefits of patience and discretion. She knows that the louder the world demands to understand her, the more power she gains by holding her cards close and letting the world fill in the blanks with its own assumptions. And here's the kicker. People often realize too late that they underestimated her, misread her intentions, or outright ignored her potential. By the time they figure it out, she's already moved to a position where being misunderstood no longer matters because she has created her own space in which the rules of perception no longer apply. Being comfortable with misunderstanding is what makes her untouchable socially, untethered emotionally, and unstoppable strategically. It's not for everyone, and that's exactly why ordinary women can't copy it. It requires a rare mix of self-assurance, patience, and quiet defiance of society's constant need to label, judge, and control. In a world obsessed with clarity, she thrives in ambiguity, and that is where her real power lies. Number 2. She builds skills before she builds visibility. A Sigma female doesn't chase attention. She doesn't post achievements online for validation, flaunt success to fit in, or rush to be seen by the right people. Most women measure worth through recognition, likes, and social proof. But she operates on a completely different timeline. She knows that true influence doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from being capable, consistent, and quietly exceptional. She invests her time and energy in developing skills, understanding systems, and mastering her craft before the world even realizes she exists. By the time others catch on, she's already 10 steps ahead, and trying to imitate her becomes impossible. She understands that visibility without substance is a trap. People will applaud someone who looks impressive but lacks depth. But that applause is fleeting, shallow, and meaningless. She avoids that trap entirely. While others are busy performing, she's grinding, learning, and preparing in ways that nobody can see. She builds leverage in silence. She knows that when skill meets opportunity, the world has no choice but to acknowledge her, but on her terms, not society's. This approach also protects her from the pressures of social validation. She doesn't need a crowd to tell her she's valuable. Her confidence is rooted in competence, not compliments. She can take risks and innovate without worrying about judgment, because she's already secured the foundation that guarantees results. Visibility is a byproduct, not a goal. And when she finally steps into the spotlight, it isn't a performance, it's proof. Her work speaks for itself, and that is a level of credibility no trend-chasing, popularity-driven person can ever replicate. Most women fail to copy this habit because it requires patience, foresight, and the ability to delay gratification consistently. They want attention first, recognition first, applause first. She reverses the equation entirely. Skill first, visibility second, impact inevitable. That patience, self-discipline, and strategic thinking make her untouchable in her field, her relationships, and her social circles. She doesn't need to announce herself. By the time the world notices, she's already moved to a position where influence is effortless, power is natural, and imitation is impossible. Number 3. She emotionally detaches before she physically leaves. A Sigma female doesn't just walk away from a situation or a person in anger or confusion. She leaves when the decision has been fully calculated and her emotions are already aligned with the exit. Most people wait until they've burned out, screamed, cried, or pleaded, and only then do they step away. Not her. She knows that reacting first and thinking later is a trap, and she refuses to fall into it. Emotional detachment comes first, and by the time she makes a physical move, it is precise, intentional, and completely irreversible in impact. This habit is invisible, but devastatingly effective. People often think they have time to manipulate her, to sway her, or to change her mind, because she's still physically present. What they fail to see is that she has already processed the betrayal, the disappointment, or the stagnation in her own mind. She has already removed herself emotionally from the situation. By the time she walks away, she has mentally rewritten the relationship, redrawn the boundaries, and neutralized the emotional ties that would normally hold someone back. Her exit isn't a reaction. It's the conclusion of a strategy, a silent statement that says, "I've calculated my value, and this no longer fits." She also doesn't carry resentment. Detachment allows her to leave without dragging unnecessary baggage into her next chapter. Most women leave, and then stew, text, call, or replay scenarios endlessly. She skips all of that because she's already processed it internally. This doesn't mean she's cold or heartless. It means she understands that emotional efficiency is power. This habit makes her completely untouchable in relationships, friendships, and professional environments. people cannot manipulate someone who has already emotionally exited while still being physically present. It also gives her freedom to observe, plan, and act with clarity, because her emotions no longer cloud her judgment. Ordinary women cannot copy this because detachment requires a combination of self-awareness, discipline, and strategic thinking that society rarely teaches. For her, leaving is not about drama, it's about reclaiming energy, control, and momentum. And when she moves in a way that feels inevitable, unchallengeable, and quietly unstoppable. Number 4. She does not compete with women. She studies systems. A Sigma female doesn't waste energy comparing herself to other women, trying to outshine them socially, or fighting for attention in petty competitions. While ordinary women often get caught in endless cycles of rivalry, gossip, and performance, she looks at the bigger picture. She studies how people interact, how decisions are made, and how influence flows through groups. Her focus is not on being better than someone else. It's on understanding the system so well that she can operate within it, around it, or even quietly reshape it without anyone realizing it. This habit gives her a level of power that is almost invisible. Most people are busy reacting emotionally to the social drama around them, but she observes patterns. She notices who holds authority, who depends on appearances, who fears exposure, and who underestimates her. By mapping the system, she knows exactly where her efforts will yield results and where they would be wasted. Competing with individuals is a short-term game. Understanding the framework behind the competition is a long-term advantage. She also knows that rivalry is a trap because it forces you to play by other people's rules. By studying systems instead of people, she removes herself from the chaos. She can predict moves, anticipate manipulations, and position herself in ways that make traditional competition irrelevant. Other women might obsess over popularity, jealousy, or social rank, but she sees these as tools or distractions rather than goals. Her intelligence lies in direction, not demonstration. This habit is almost impossible to copy because it requires a rare combination of patience, observation, and strategic thinking. Most people are too busy performing for approval to pause and analyze the invisible currents shaping their environment. A Sigma female thrives there, moving with precision and purpose while the crowd scrambles, reacts, and exhausts itself in competition. By refusing to compete in the obvious ways and focusing on the hidden structures instead, she creates a space where influence is earned, control is maintained, and imitation becomes impossible. Her power is quiet, her strategy unseen, and her success inevitable. Number 5. She delays gratification even when nobody is watching. A Sigma female doesn't live for the instant reward, and that is what separates her from almost everyone around her. While most people are wired to chase likes, applause, or the quick thrill, she understands that real power comes from patience, consistency, and the ability to invest in herself long before the world notices. She doesn't need a crowd to validate her choices because her satisfaction comes from results she knows are inevitable, not temporary boosts that fade the moment someone scrolls past or ignores her effort. Delaying gratification is not a test for her. It's a lifestyle, and it gives her an edge that ordinary women can't copy because it requires self-control that most never develop. She might pass on a social invitation to study, train, or work on a skill that compounds over time. She might skip a short-term pleasure because she knows it will distract or drain her energy from what truly matters. This doesn't make her rigid or joyless. It makes her intentional. Every choice is weighed, every action calculated to ensure long-term advantage. The ability to resist temptation, to prioritize impact over impulse, allows her to build a foundation others can't even see, let alone replicate. What's striking is that she does this silently. There's no Instagram post, no humble brag, no motivational caption about discipline. She doesn't need recognition for patience or restraint. That's why her progress seems almost magical to outsiders. By the time people notice her achievements, they assume luck or innate talent, never realizing that it's the quiet, invisible grind, the countless small sacrifices that built the momentum. Delaying gratification also shapes her mindset in ways ordinary women can't touch. She develops mental toughness, the ability to tolerate discomfort, and the capacity to focus intensely on long-term objectives without being distracted by the chaos around her. She becomes impossible to derail, and her decisions are never reactionary. This habit alone allows her to operate at a level of freedom, control, and influence that most people can only admire from afar, because the patience, discipline, and foresight required cannot be faked or rushed. For a Sigma female, the reward isn't just what she achieves, it's that she has the power to achieve it on her own terms. Number 6. She is selective with empathy. A Sigma female doesn't give her empathy freely like it's a social currency or a way to be liked. She understands that compassion is a powerful resource, and like any resource, it needs boundaries. Most people operate on autopilot. They give themselves away emotionally to anyone who asks, hoping for connection, approval, or reciprocity. She doesn't. She is extremely aware that unlimited empathy attracts unlimited takers, people who will drain her energy, manipulate her emotions, or exploit her kindness. Her empathy is strategic, intentional, and fiercely protected. This doesn't mean she's cold or unfeeling. On the contrary, when she chooses to care, she invests fully, but only when it aligns with her values, her priorities, and her boundaries. She can sense energy drain and emotional debt before most people even notice it exists. She knows that giving too much to the wrong people leads to exhaustion, distraction, and compromise. By being selective, she ensures her emotional energy fuels the right connections, relationships, and projects, rather than wasting itself on drama, manipulation, or superficial bonds. Being selective with empathy also makes her unpredictable. People who assume she will react emotionally or side with them automatically are often blindsided when she doesn't. She doesn't need to justify herself, explain her feelings, or conform to the expectations of others. Her emotional control creates an invisible power. She can read situations, influence outcomes, and maintain her peace, all without being exploited. This habit is nearly impossible to copy because it requires a level of self-awareness, patience, and emotional intelligence that most people never cultivate. Ordinary women might feel empathy deeply, but they often struggle to regulate it, to decide when to give and when to withhold. The Sigma female has mastered the balance. She can care deeply without compromising her stability. She can connect without being trapped, and she can navigate relationships without being at the mercy of someone else's emotional chaos. Her empathy becomes a tool, not a trap, and in a world where emotional manipulation is everywhere, this habit alone makes her untouchable, self-sufficient, and profoundly respected. Number 7. She can sit in emotional discomfort without reacting. A Sigma female has mastered something most people can't even begin to understand: the ability to experience emotional tension, frustration, or conflict without immediately responding to it. While ordinary women might feel the need to vent, argue, cry, or lash out when faced with discomfort, she stays calm, composed, and observant. She doesn't suppress her emotions, she processes them internally, but she refuses to let them control her actions or dictate her decisions. This ability to sit in discomfort gives her a level of clarity, patience, and power that makes her nearly untouchable in any situation. She understands that immediate reactions often lead to mistakes, regrets, and unwanted drama. When someone pushes her buttons, she doesn't feel compelled to retaliate or defend herself publicly. Instead, she allows the emotional storm to pass, analyzing the situation from every angle, understanding the motives at play, and deciding on a response only when it serves her long-term goals. People around her may interpret her silence as weakness or indecision, but in reality, it is a deliberate, strategic choice. This habit also trains her mind to tolerate uncertainty and tension without breaking down. Most people panic when things don't go their way, when relationships become complicated, or when outcomes are uncertain. She, however, has developed an emotional resilience that lets her hold space for discomfort while maintaining control. She doesn't run from problems, but she doesn't allow them to dictate her behavior either. This creates an aura of calm authority that is magnetic and intimidating at the same time. Sitting in emotional discomfort without reacting is not something ordinary women can copy easily because it requires an exceptional mix of self-awareness, patience, and discipline. It's a skill that is built over time through repeated practice and the refusal to let emotions govern life choices. For a Sigma female, discomfort is not a threat. It's an opportunity to observe, adapt, and ultimately dominate situations without ever appearing desperate or reactive. Her composure becomes her power, her silence becomes her strategy, and her patience becomes her advantage. Number 8. She doesn't argue to be understood. She adjusts access instead. A Sigma female doesn't waste time trying to convince people of her worth, clarify every misunderstanding, or justify her choices. Most people feel compelled to explain themselves repeatedly, hoping that persistence will force others to see things their way. Not her. She understands that arguing for understanding is often futile, exhausting, and ultimately a giveaway of her power. Instead of battling for approval, she silently adjusts who gets access to her time, energy, and presence. She doesn't need everyone to understand her. She only needs the right people in her orbit. This habit is subtle, but devastatingly effective. By controlling access, she establishes boundaries that others can't cross, even if they don't fully grasp why. If someone is toxic, manipulative, or disrespectful, she doesn't debate them into submission. She removes them from her environment. If a situation is draining or misaligned with her goals, she doesn't plead for acknowledgement. She limits her engagement and focuses elsewhere. Her power lies in choice. She decides who matters, who is allowed in, and who simply doesn't get the privilege of her attention. Ordinary women often copycat boundaries superficially, but the Sigma female's approach is strategic, deliberate, and rooted in self-respect. She understands that people will always have their assumptions, biases, and opinions, and no amount of argument will change that. Instead of fighting to be understood, she redirects her energy toward outcomes she can control, toward people and situations that actually matter. This habit also gives her a quiet, almost invisible dominance. Others may not even notice the shift until they feel it. They find themselves excluded, overlooked, or unable to manipulate her, and they have no idea why. She doesn't create drama, she creates results. By choosing access over argument, she protects her peace, preserves her energy, and maintains control in a world that constantly tries to demand explanations. Ordinary women can't copy this because it requires emotional intelligence, patience, and strategic foresight that society rarely encourages. For her, influence is not earned through persuasion. It is exercised through selective presence and deliberate absence, and that is where her true power lies. Number 9, she treats information like currency, not gossip. A Sigma female understands that knowledge is power, and she treats it with the same respect, caution, and strategy that a banker treats money. Most people share information carelessly, spilling secrets, repeating rumors, or broadcasting what they know to appear connected or important. She doesn't. For her, every piece of information has value, and the way it's stored, shared, or withheld can directly impact her influence, relationships, and opportunities. She knows that information, like currency, can build wealth, leverage, and freedom, but it can also create debt, vulnerability, and exposure if mismanaged. She observes everything quietly, remembers details others forget, and connects dots that nobody else sees. When she speaks, it's deliberate. Every word carries weight because she has chosen what to reveal, when, and to whom. She understands that information is never neutral. People interpret it, act on it, and use it to their advantage or disadvantage. By controlling what she shares and who receives it, she maintains power in a subtle but undeniable way. Ordinary women often mistake oversharing for openness, but she knows that being too transparent is a form of surrender, and surrender is not in her vocabulary. Her strategic approach to information also allows her to anticipate moves, predict outcomes, and maintain an advantage in almost any social, professional, or personal environment. People underestimate her because she rarely broadcasts her knowledge, but she is always 3 steps ahead. She never lets gossip or surface-level chatter dictate her behavior. Instead, she treats facts, insights, and relationships as assets to be protected, leveraged, and multiplied over time. This habit cannot be copied easily because it requires discipline, foresight, and an almost instinctual understanding of human behavior. Ordinary women may have knowledge, but they rarely grasp its value or the consequences of careless sharing. The Sigma female, on the other hand, uses information to create influence, maintain control, and safeguard her freedom. For her, knowledge isn't just power, it's a weapon, a shield, and a form of independence that sets her apart from anyone who tries to compete with her in the social or strategic arena. Number 10. She exits social circles the moment they start shaping her behavior. A Sigma female doesn't wait until she's molded into someone she isn't before she walks away. She has a 6th sense for when a group, a friend, or a community starts imposing rules, expectations, or pressures that conflict with her identity, values, or goals. Most people cling to social circles even when they feel themselves changing under the influence of others, afraid of loneliness, rejection, or loss of status. She does the opposite. The moment she notices her behavior being shaped, whether subtly or overtly, she disengages before it can cost her integrity or freedom. This habit gives her a kind of untouchable independence. She doesn't compromise her thoughts, feelings, or actions to fit in. She doesn't argue endlessly to be accepted or manipulate herself to meet unspoken expectations. She simply exits, quietly and without fanfare, reclaiming her autonomy. To an outsider, it might look abrupt or even cold, but for her, it is the most natural act of self-preservation. By leaving before influence can take hold, she protects her energy, her direction, and her sense of self, and ensures that every decision she makes comes from her own values, not someone else's pressure. Ordinary women often struggle with this because they have been conditioned to equate belonging with worth. They stay in circles long after those circles begin to dilute their identity, thinking that connection or approval is more valuable than freedom. She doesn't play that game. Her social exits are calculated, timely, and decisive. They prevent unnecessary compromise and allow her to operate in environments that align with her goals, vision, and mental clarity. This habit also amplifies her influence. People notice when someone leaves with intention rather than drama. They respect it, even if they don't fully understand it. It communicates boundaries, discernment, and self-sufficiency in a way arguments never could. Ordinary women can't copy this because it requires self-awareness, courage, and a refusal to surrender comfort for social convenience. For her, exiting isn't about rejection. It's about reclaiming power, autonomy, and the right to move through life on her own terms, always 3 steps ahead of anyone trying to contain her. Number 11. She doesn't seek to be liked, she seeks to be effective. A Sigma female isn't concerned with popularity, approval, or fitting into someone else's idea of what's acceptable or charming. While most people expend endless energy shaping themselves to be liked, modifying their words, behaviors, or appearance to win validation, she focuses on results. Her priority is not to make everyone comfortable or to earn applause. It's to move efficiently, accomplish her goals, and leave impact wherever she goes. This mindset makes her quietly terrifying to those who are ruled by opinions, because she doesn't bend to social pressure, gossip, or the need to be admired. Effectiveness for her is about alignment and leverage. Every action is measured by its outcome, not by how it is perceived. She chooses honesty over flattery, decisions over diplomacy, and results over sentiment. If someone misunderstands her or disapproves, it doesn't faze her. What matters is whether her actions are advancing her purpose, not her popularity. Ordinary women often mistake charm for power, smiles for influence, or social likability for authority. She doesn't play that game because she understands that approval is fleeting, while competence and strategic impact are enduring. This habit also creates a rare kind of freedom. When you're not trying to be liked, you're no longer bound by fear of judgment, rejection, or alienation. She can make decisions that others wouldn't dare, take paths that seem risky, and speak truths that would earn social backlash, all without hesitation. Her effectiveness isn't loud or performative. It's precise, calculated, and inevitable. People may underestimate her initially, but results cannot be ignored. Most women can't copy this because it requires self-awareness, discipline, and confidence in one's own vision, qualities that take time and struggle to cultivate. Being effective over being liked means sacrificing temporary approval for lasting influence, and most aren't willing to pay that price. For a Sigma female, the truth is simple. Admiration is optional, impact is mandatory, and those who try to measure her by popularity alone will always fall short of understanding the power she wields. Number 12. She accepts that her path will look lonely and still chooses it. A Sigma female knows that her journey isn't designed to fit into crowds, trends, or societal expectations. While most people fear loneliness and constantly seek validation, she understands that true growth, independence, and mastery require walking a path few dare to take. The world rewards conformity, but she rewards herself through freedom, self-reliance, and long-term success. Loneliness isn't a problem for her. It's a sign that she's on the right path, doing what others are too afraid, lazy, or distracted to pursue. This acceptance is what sets her apart. She doesn't look for constant companionship to feel complete, nor does she bend her choices to avoid being alone. She is willing to step away from friendships, relationships, or social situations that compromise her integrity or goals. Most women struggle here because they equate being surrounded with people as proof of value or safety. She knows that being alone with purpose is far more powerful than being in a crowd with compromise. Her solitude becomes a space for strategy, reflection, and growth, an environment in which she can cultivate skills, ideas, and resilience that others simply cannot. Choosing a path that looks lonely requires courage because outsiders rarely understand it. People will misinterpret her independence as arrogance, coldness, or social failure. She doesn't argue, explain, or perform for approval. Instead, she embraces the isolation that comes with being different, knowing that those who truly matter will respect her, and those who don't are irrelevant to her journey. Her focus is on alignment, not popularity, on results, not validation. Ordinary women often fail to copy this because it requires unwavering self-trust, mental fortitude, and a willingness to bear discomfort for the sake of long-term advantage. Most people chase inclusion and fear judgment more than they pursue growth. For the Sigma female, the loneliness of her path is not a weakness, it is the foundation of her strength. It is where she cultivates clarity, independence, and the quiet confidence that ensures, when she arrives at her destination, she does so unshakable, unstoppable, and impossible to ignore. The Sigma female is not built for the ordinary, the comfortable, or the socially convenient. She operates on a level that most people cannot see, cannot imitate, and often cannot even comprehend. Every habit, every choice, and every action she takes is calculated, intentional, and rooted in a deep understanding of herself and the world around her. She doesn't chase attention, approval, or applause. She builds skills, cultivates influence, and navigates life on her own terms. From her mastery of emotional detachment to her strategic use of solitude, from her selective empathy to her ability to tolerate discomfort without reacting, she has created a life that is quietly extraordinary, invisible to those who are distracted by noise, yet unstoppable in its impact. What makes her truly exceptional is not just what she does, but how she thinks. She values autonomy over conformity, results over validation, and clarity over chaos. Ordinary women may try to imitate her behaviors, but they fail to grasp the mindset that makes those habits work. Her power lies not in spectacle, but in substance, not in fleeting impressions, but in lasting influence, not in being liked, but in being effective. She moves through life deliberately, strategically, and with an unwavering sense of self that commands respect without demanding it. If you've been watching closely, you'll see that every Sigma female habit we've explored today, every choice she makes, every boundary she sets, every way she protects her energy, is a blueprint for independence, resilience, and undeniable power. She is a reminder that success, influence, and freedom are not gifts handed out by society. They are cultivated silently, deliberately, and with absolute intention. So if you want to see more deep insights like this, strategies that challenge conventional thinking, and truths that most people are too afraid to admit, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and share it with anyone who needs to understand the extraordinary world of Sigma females. This isn't just content. It's a lens into a mindset that most people will never grasp, but one that can change the way you see independence, power, and life itself.